Okay, good morning everyone. We're going to get started now. I'm Anne-Claire Hervey. I'm the Associate Vice President here at APLU in the International Programs Office, and I'm co-moderating this webinar with Andrew Gilboy with Associates for Global Change.
Good morning everybody. Nice to be back on our third webinar. Anne?
And as you can see from the photos, we've got two guest presenters who will be joining us and leading this webinar. We've got Marco Nordalos and Marin Jenga, both joining from Nairobi. And now, Marco and Mary, let's check in that you can hear and speak at this point.
Thank you, Anne-Claire. This is Marco, and good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. This is Marin Jenga from Nairobi.
Great. Well, welcome back to everyone who's joined on previous webinars. And for those for whom this is the first time, I'm just going to give a brief background on this webinar series. This is the third in a series of 4 focused on best practices for long-term training. And this whole project sprung out of conversations with USAID about 2 things. One is the sense that currently there's no real platform at the moment for implementers of long-term training to share best practices, ideas, tools, etc. And 2, the sense that there's really a need for a deeper understanding about increasing the impact of individual training on institutional strengthening. So this is the lens through which we're looking at each of our topics. We're taking USAID's Human and Institutional Capacity Development Framework called HICD, which is now the agency's mandated policy, and we're using that framework as the framework for each of our webinar topics. HICD is based on several decades of evidence we have that individual capacity development has the greatest impact when it's done in a way that targets institutional performance improvement. So USAID programs are now moving increasingly in this direction, and by focusing on institutions, identifying performance gaps, and then providing training sometimes when that's determined to be the gap, and providing training that directly addresses the institution's strategic targets. So we know that some of your programs are limited to just providing individual training, but our discussion here and in the last 2 webinars is going to look at how this institutional strengthening approach affects how we think about and conduct long-term training.
Yeah, thank you, Anne, and good day, everyone. Again, this is Andy Gilboy. It's great to be back on our third subject, which is mentoring and other ways to leverage the impact of training. Some of you may remember the first webinar, which addressed measuring impact, which is basically how we can know whether the changes are occurring that we hope would occur. In particular, in instances where the main responsibility of our program is training the individual. So we're trying to kind of stretch from individual focus into institutional focus, bearing in mind that we train individuals, not bricks on a wall or a school building. We of course are engaged with individuals. So this is the underlying theme that Anne-Claire expressed that is driving us through the webinars and through picking subjects that we think and that you think will help you in strengthening that institutional focus. The second webinar looked at ways to increase the influence and number of women in programs where they are often underrepresented, such as in the sciences and in agriculture and engineering and other areas. This again looked at how to assist women in advancing both in their individual professional careers, but also within the institutions where they work. So today we're going to look in some detail at 2 tools that can help us achieve those institutional changes beyond the transformation of an individual through graduate work, for example, or through long-term training. We're all inspired by, of course, the excitement of training an individual in a degree program or in a long-term training, but what is really going to help us the most in terms of developing masses of people that can be influenced by the changes in an individual is the focus on the institution. So today we're going to look at two tools, mentoring and action planning. These are two kinds of tools that people can consider using in their individually focused training that can have a greater impact on the institutions. So we've selected one program based in Nairobi, which you'll hear about in a minute, where they've had particular success in mentoring and have set up a fairly structured system to actually implement it. We thought it would be of great interest to many of you to learn what they've done, and they very graciously agreed to share their, not only their wisdom today, but their documents, which are already on our website. You can download, guidelines for mentors, guidelines for coordinators, guidelines for mentees. So we felt these are very useful and very well put together documents and tools that can be of interest to you. They'll also talk about what they have a special term they use for action planning, which is the individual's attempt to understand how they can have a greater influence beyond themselves when they return to their countries. So that's what we're going to do today, and then we'll open it up at various points to listen to your suggestions for tools that you found that have worked, or questions that you may have for any of the two presenters. So I think, Anne, without going any further than that, let's get it going.
Okay, so we'll turn it over now to a brief presentation from Marco Nordalos. Marco's original academic background is in marine biology and environmental management, and has been with the CGIAR for over 16 years. And in 2007, in his words, he switched from counting fish to people and organizational development. And he took on the role of Executive Officer of the CGIAR Gender and Diversity Program, and now currently serves award, the African Women Agricultural and Research and Development Award, as the M&E Coordinator and Fellowship Manager. And following Marco, we'll have Marin Jenga, who is a 2009 fellow, speak about her experience. Mary has a Master of Science in the Biology of Conservation from the University of Nairobi in Kenya, and a PhD in Management of Agrosystem and Environment from the University of Nairobi. And she's currently working on the role of trees in building resilient livelihoods and human well-being in Eastern African drylands at the World Agroforestry Center in Nairobi. So with that, Marco, I'm handing this over to you now.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much to both of you, and just for having us here and giving us an opportunity to share on this fantastic platform. It really is much appreciated. Not knowing how many people are familiar with award, we'll just spend a minute or so just explaining what award is and what it does. If I could, and since I don't have direct control over the slide deck, I will need to say next every once in a while for the next slide like this. Thank you so much. So award is a career development program that equips talented women agricultural scientists across sub-Saharan Africa to accelerate agricultural innovation. And we want to strengthen their research and leadership skills through a career development fellowship. Award started in 2008 and is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, USAID, AGRA, and the Acropolis Foundation. And we're housed at the World Agroforestry Center in Nairobi. And so Award really wants to see, what Award wants to see in agricultural development are relevant innovations that are led and enriched by the contributions of capable, confident, and influential women in agricultural research and development. And so our fellowships are for 2 years, and they focus on the development of advanced science skills, leadership skills, and mentoring. Next, please. Next slide. Yeah. To date, we have supported some 320 fellows who were chosen from quite a large pool of applicants from 11 sub-Saharan countries. And we'll be selecting another 70 fellows next month. We partner with more than 200 organizations and institutions, including many national institutions of agricultural research. Now, mentoring is a key cornerstone in our fellowship program, and that's what we're going to focus on here. Next, please. Now, mentoring can be a powerful driver. Previous slide, please. Mentoring can be a powerful driver for career development, and particularly for retaining and strengthening women in science. The empowerment of African women in agricultural research and development is really at the core of award's desired impacts. And so our theory of change assumes, and our M&E results confirm, that our mentoring process is really part of the backbone of awards and of our impacts. But a key question is, what really do we mean by mentoring? And now this cartoon, of course, is quite funny. Can we stay with the previous one, please? So mentoring is not encouraging others to be like you, or simply telling others what you would do in a certain situation, nor is it plainly advising or directing others. Yeah, many senior researchers and leaders think and say, sure, I've been mentoring for years, but in reality, they've been doing something else. For example, supervising or some loose form of informal mentoring or advising, but at least not the kind of formal mentoring that award promotes. So it may be helpful to be clear and explicit about what we mean by mentoring. Next, please. At its most basic, mentoring refers to a developmental partnership between a more experienced professional and a less experienced partner. But there's more to it than that. For example, we don't see mentoring as a simple one-way communication between a mentor and a fellow. Our hope and our goal is that during the mentoring period, the mentoring will build a supportive partnership that benefits and serves both parties, although the focus is on the fellow's development. Next, please. So to unpack this a little bit, this is what we see in award as the key elements of mentoring. A mentor provides nurturing support by listening, asking questions, and sharing their experience, knowledge, and networks. A mentor supports and challenges a fellow to grow within her field and within her institution. And a mentor encourages the fellow to focus her career and build strong leadership for the future. Next. Now, an important comment to make here is that in our view, one's supervisor should really never be one's formal mentor. Now, I hope that many supervisors use mentoring skills and all of that, but when we talk about formal mentoring and formal mentor roles, there's simply too much room for role conflict. Simply put, the supervisor's responsibility is focused primarily on the organization's interest, whereas the mentor's focus is on the individual's interest that he or she is supporting. So if these responsibilities are held by the same person, now prioritization of needs and conflict of loyalty can occur. So although both mentor and supervisor are of course interested in the career development and success of the employee in the organization, there are distinct differences in their roles, responsibilities, and priorities, and in our view should not be held by the same person. And so this is why in award we require at least 2 layers of separation between the fellow and her mentor. So for example, they need to be from different departments and at different levels. And this is simply to ensure that they can talk freely with each other about the fellow's goals and ambitions, and to minimize any risks of jealousy or other kinds of backlash. We have seen cases, not necessarily in awards, where such issues can be actually quite real. And so also for this reason, we tend to see that more of our most senior fellows typically have mentors in a different institution, although that's not always the case. Next slide, please. Now, each of our fellows is carefully matched with a senior scientist or a leader for a mentoring process to build the science and leadership capacity in the fellow while drawing from the mentor's expertise and networks. And coordinating and matching fellows with mentors is really often an overlooked art. In Award, we are lucky to have a full-time and very experienced mentoring coordinator who guides this process of matching 70 fellows each year with a suitable mentor. And she does this by doing initial interviews, following up with them, discussing any challenges, and celebrating their progress. And we don't select mentors just based on their job title or their professional experience alone. We look just as much as personal styles, preferences, and motivations. Because there really needs to be a good match or chemistry for mentoring to be more than just a monthly meeting with somebody senior. They don't need to be best buddies, but there must be some sort of personal connection for a successful mentoring partnership. Next, please. So mentoring can be empowering to both individuals and their organizations, but it really takes a motivated and skilled person to coordinate that well. It's complex, and we can't simply assign an HR assistant as the mentoring coordinator without any further guidance and still expect a successful mentoring program. And to help with this, we developed guidelines for mentoring coordinators when we were still the Gender and Diversity Program of the CGIAR. And these are available online and have been posted in the AccuLink site under the Knowledge Network group. And we think these coordinated guidelines are a very helpful resource for anyone considering to set up a mentoring program, whether it's in a single institution or across institutions. We've seen many times that the in-house capacity for setting up successful mentoring programs is either lacking or not given adequate thought of how to do this well. And so these resources are available there, both in English and Spanish. Next slide, please. So once a cohort of fellows have been successfully paired with a suitable mentor, the very first activity in the award fellowship is a mentoring orientation workshop. We see this as an essential component in helping them and guiding them to prepare for the mentoring process. And as such, we invest considerable in this event that brings together all the 70 fellows and mentors for 4 to 5 days. And for those fellows and mentors who are unable to attend any of our mentoring workshops, we follow up with them with a personal session, either by phone or face-to-face if feasible, to orientate them, guide them, and get them going. During this mentoring workshop, we focus on practical mentoring guidelines, do's and don'ts, and expectations around a successful and professional mentoring partnership. What does that look like? And given the importance of the chemistry between fellows and mentors, we also spent quite a large part of the mentoring workshop on interpersonal skills. So for example, personality types, cultural aspects, the difference between genders, etc. At the end of the mentoring workshop, each fellow and mentor pair work individually with a coach to work through their mentoring action plan and to set them off on their 1 year of mentoring. Next, please. Also during the mentoring workshop, both fellows and mentors receive a mentoring workbook to record their insights, their learnings, goals, and plans. And again, we've adapted these to awards and to an African context, but the main materials and tools again come from our work over the years in the CGIAR, and also both these workbooks are available online and have been posted on the AccuLinks group. So you can download them there. Next, please. One of these tools is what we call a purpose roadmap, in which the fellow, together with the mentor, define her ambitious and big picture career goal or life purpose, if you'd like. Next. And following that, then identifies what would be the most important powerful, influential position for her to achieve that life purpose. Next. She then works from where she is now, her current position, to how she could get there. What does their career path look like? Next. Then the fellow and mentor also define what kind of research achievements and skills will be required to achieve the desired career progression. Next. And this then forms the basic for specific development goals and a mentoring plan for the coming 12 months of mentoring. So this is the purpose roadmap. And for many of our fellows, this tool proves extremely powerful and useful. For the first time, they've become very focused and intentional about where they want to go with their science careers and their lives, and what kind of impact and legacy they'd like to have. And so it's very helpful in focusing one's energy and activities to have such a purpose roadmap. And it also helps to say no sometimes to something that may appear like an interesting opportunity but would not necessarily lead them on the path they themselves want to pursue. Next, please. So with the mentoring workshop done and a mentoring action plan in hand, the fellow and her mentor embark on a 12-month partnership. Our guidelines are to meet face-to-face for about 1 to 2 hours at least once a month. And as part of the award fellowship, we provide about $50 a month to support those meetings for local travel and any other costs such as phone costs. Next, please. About 70% of our fellow mentor pairs are located in the same city. 41% are even in the same location, for instance, a campus or office building. Some are more dispersed in their respective countries, and a few, about 4%, are located in different countries. So for those who are further away or whom are just have very busy travel schedules, they rely more on virtual forms of mentoring, such as through the phone and Skype and email, which actually can be quite effective too, as we will hear later. Next, please. Now, the award fellowship is 2 years, as I said, but each fellow is mentored for only 1 year. And there's 2 reasons for this. First is that we found that 1 year is just long enough to work on substantial progress, but still short enough to stay focused. Yeah, anything much longer than that, it can become a lingering series of meetings without the required focus and drive to set and achieve specific targets. Now, of course, fellows and mentors can renew their mentoring plan and goals after 1 year if they want to, but in principle, our mentoring is for 1 year. The other reason for the 1 year is that in the second year of the award fellowship, each fellow shares it forward by applying her mentoring and leadership skills and taking on and mentoring a more junior women researcher or professional. So here in this photo, we have an example from Makerere University in Uganda, where on the right side we have an award fellow, in the middle is her mentor, and on the left is the fellow's mentee from year 2. And so these 3 women from the same institution, they keep meeting and discussing and supporting each other, and it's actually quite powerful to see these developments. So even when we're not working with specific institutions most of the time, because we work with individuals primarily, we do assume in our theory of change certain ripple effects and scaling up that has impacts on departments and even institutions. And our initial M&E findings show such preliminary evidence of ripple effects. We see, for example, several fellows, mentors, and mentees, like the 3 in this photo, that continue to work together, support each other, and, for instance, establish a gender policy in their institutions or promote that. Next, please. Now, in terms of the benefits of mentoring on goal achievement and career development, this is just an overview, but around 75% of the fellows report the mentoring to be very beneficial, and another 20% say it has been moderately beneficial. Reasons given by the remaining 5% typically are related to difficulties in finding the time for regular meetings. Next, please. Now, interestingly, it's not only the fellows who get to benefit from the mentoring process. We have overwhelming evidence from the mentors that they find it a very positive and rewarding experience too. Mentors tell us that they learned practical new skills about effective mentoring, about leadership, staff development, and that they now have a more up-to-date understanding of the outlooks and the research focus of their younger colleagues in their institutions. That they benefit from the recognition by peers and leaders in the institutions as a formal mentor. And so we see quite a bit of evidence of what some people call reverse mentoring, where the more senior person actually benefits significantly from working with the more junior person. Next, please. When we think about award, a lot of people think that award only works with women, but that's not the case. Next slide, please. In fact, almost half of the 275 award mentors are men. And these are typically very senior and seasoned scientists and leaders who volunteer their time, experience, and networks to make a difference in the careers of women researchers. And their feedback is often very powerful. Many of these senior men tell us that for the first time now, they understand the challenges that women researchers face in their career development, and that they were never before aware of that as men. In fact, I've heard one male mentor say that not only did he think that he had become a better leader, but that he has now also become a better husband and a better father to his daughters. And that's just a really powerful side effect of mentoring. Next, please. So we're very happy that one of our really inspiring former award fellows, Marin Jenga, is with us in this webinar today. She was a 2009 fellow. She's a true inspiration, recently got her PhD, and she really does some outstanding work in natural resources management. So here's a photo of Mary on the left, together with her mentor, Dr. Yvonne Pinto. Yvonne was formerly with the Gates Foundation, but over the past years has been the director of Align, Agricultural Learning and Impact Network, based in the UK. And it's really fantastic to find people of this caliber who are willing to volunteer their time and expertise as a mentor to up-and-coming women scientists. This is also an example of a fellow and a mentor who did not live in the same city or even in the same continent, yet still managed to establish a very powerful and successful mentoring partnership. So that's it for me for now. So I'd like to invite Mary just to share a little bit of her experience in terms of mentoring under the award program. Mary?
Yeah, thank you, Marco. I'd like to share briefly on my experiences with award as a fellow and as a mentee. And one thing I would like to say is that this is a formal mentorship. There are various informal ways of mentoring people, but what I found to be very useful about award is that it's a formal mentorship, and for it being more formal, then it's very focused and focused in on the interest of the mentee on long-term career development. And from my case is that I wanted to end up as a very influential scientist who can be able to influence decision making in Kenya and in Africa in general in terms of natural resource management and agriculture. And through the award fellowship being paired with Dr. Yvonne Pinto, we started off with the mentorship orientation workshop. And this was very useful, where I learned that to be able to develop myself and be able to work with other people, I must learn my own personality style so that I can change where necessary, I can improve on my strengths, and then I can be able to understand other people and be able to work with them well. And in my mentorship with Yvonne Pinto, We started off also by developing my objectives, and I identified 3 key areas: technical skills, leadership skills, and networking. And then I also developed a purpose roadmap, and this purpose roadmap has really helped me to keep focused in my profession. And at that time I was about to start my PhD. I was looking for the area to study, and once I was able to identify the area of my study, which has been looking at recycling organic byproducts for cooking energy, I was able to start off my PhD at the University of Nairobi formally in March 2011. And I just completed my PhD in 2.5 years, about 6.5 months ahead of schedule. And I must admit that because of my being focused and also being able to be mentored through my PhD and other areas, I've been able to achieve my goals without any problems. And in my mentorship with Yvonne Pinto has been mostly, Yvonne lives in London and I live in Kenya. And Yvonne is a busy woman, travels a lot. But what we have found to be very workable in such a relationship is that we were both very committed to the mentorship, and we were also able to forge a friendship between me and Yvonne. And then we have been able to integrate our mentorship into our schedules of work. And some other key factors that have made it very successful is that there has been mutual trust. We believe in each other, and we have a lot of we enjoy a lot of confidentiality, because for me to be able to share what I would need to be helped in, I need to tell this to somebody who I trust and who I believe in, such that in the exchange of the ideas that we will be able to have, then I can be able to take them up and apply them in my own way, not as opposed to being directed on what to do. And what I found within our mentorship is that because Yvonne is not my supervisor in any way, we have been able to interact so freely without any fear at all. And I must say that today I enjoy a lot of visibility as a scientist from Africa, and because networking was one of my objectives, and we've been working on this with Yvonne. And anytime there are opportunities for me to network in my field of, in my profession, then she's able to hint these points, and I'm able to pick them up. And I have learned that in this mentorship, I have to be a self-starter. I have to initiate. I have to tell Yvonne what I need, because she may not know. But the moment I'm proactive and able to tell her exactly what I want, then I'm able to benefit. The other aspect in the mentorship of a word that is very important and has really built my skills is it also incorporates the technical capacity building. The first year is dedicated to mentorship, and the second year, people who are postmasters and post-PhD, they compete for placement in any organization in the world where they feel that they are going to gain certain specific skills that they cannot find within their institution or within the country. And I was placed at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences in the Department of Energy and Technology, and I have gained a lot of experience from that university, being there for 7 months. And I've also been able to do some collaborative work with my mentor from the Swedish University, who was chosen to work with me. And with this supervisor from the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, our friendship grew during my placement, and up to today, we are developing projects together, And next year we are going to do a project in Kenya on biochar, and SLU has some students, and they have approved of my formal supervision for the students, which I feel very confident to do, because I have built this confidence through the mentorship program. And lastly is that the award fellowship also helps in the fellows and the mentors having influence on their institutions. From my institution, my former institution, the University of Nairobi, where I was doing my PhD, through working with my PhD supervisor, I've been able to contribute to influencing policy, specifically on incorporating gender in the academics and also in research projects. And this has been happening both directly and indirectly. Indirectly in this way, through my working with my supervisor and discussing issues of gender and how I would wish to see them incorporated in research, she has been able to build her skills in gender issues. She's a soil scientist, and she has been able to build her skills in gender and picked that theme very powerfully, and she's able to directly influence the policies because she's in a higher position than I am. So indirectly through me, we are influencing policies at the university. And this is also happening at World Agroforestry Center through working with my supervisor here, and in my own capacity, incorporating gender in the research projects. My supervisors also have been able to appreciate the need, and we are able now to develop projects which are more focused on gender and other issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary. You're such an inspiration. And sorry.
No, go ahead, Marco.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to thank Mary. She's always so fantastic to listen to, and her story is so powerful. So I just wanted to thank you all. I hope this was useful, and hand it back to Andrew and Marie-Claire. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Marco and Mary. This was just a wonderful presentation, and I have learned so much about mentoring myself. I probably speak for a lot of the listeners out there. You've provided us with the tools and clear definitions of what you did to structure a program, and then the impact that that can have on certainly on the individual, and then Mary's testimony about the impact it had on her individually and her own career path development, as well as on the institution, really gave us a very clear idea of what can be done. I think what we would like to do is spend about 20 minutes on questions and answers, and then move into, to close it out, some other ways to leverage impact beyond mentoring and action planning. So I'm going to take the liberty of being one of the co-moderators to ask the first question, and then we can kind of open it up. Marco, you said that your theory of change, if I understood you, assumed ripple effects scaling up on institutions. I found that a very nice phrase, and then you, I believe, provided some evidence that those changes occurred, or at least that you measured them. So my question is, first of all, what kind of changes actually did happen at the institution, and are they sustainable? Would they have occurred without the mentoring? Would they have occurred by the individuals simply being whatever, more influential or more able to express themselves? I'm just curious what you might say on that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. Well, what we're looking for in award, our foundation is an empowerment model, and we look at changes within power within, basically. So personal change, like increasing confidence and self-awareness and those kinds of things. Then moving up to power to do, so having more skills and more awareness. Power over, so to have control over things. Like resources and grants and those kinds of things. And power with is the last power, where we see solidarity and joint action. So that's the empowerment model that we look for, and we see, in the first few years, we've seen a lot of evidence of the first few powers, so definitely the personal transformation is happening. And we are starting to see evidence, credible evidence of the higher power. So definitely people get promoted and they start publishing more and they have more access to international networks and those kinds of things. But we see those ripple effects that I mentioned on one of the slides as well. Women starting, and men, starting to work together jointly in their institutions to argue for policy changes, for a gender policy, for changes in the recruitment process and things like that. So that's the evidence that we're starting to see. We have focused initially at the individual level, and we have found a lot of evidence there. It is now time for us to focus much more at the institutional level in terms of our evaluation activities, and that will be the focus the next few years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much for that answer, and it's inspiring for all of us, since we all, of course, deal at the individual level, and we're trying to find new ways of stretching that impact to institutional, and I think you provided some good evidence. And I also was impressed that this has evolved over time, it seems, with the award. I mean, I doubt that your original design had all these ideas and structure in them. Is that right?
Yes and no. It wasn't exactly that we were learning to fly while building the plane. We had done a pilot project, quite a significant pilot project, and there were a lot of lessons learned there, as well as from the literature. So we had a pretty good sense of of the award program and the impact pathways, etc., from the start. However, our approach is about learning and adaptive management, and the theory of change is there to be tested and to be, and our understanding to be revised if needed and action taken. So we are constantly making revisions. A good example for that Mary referred to as well, when awards started out, the first few years, our most junior fellows, the post-bachelors, they would get mentoring for 2 years. It was only the postgraduates who get mentoring for 1 year and then become a mentor in the second year. And from the feedback that we got and from what we learned, it was obvious that that second year of mentoring just didn't really do it, and so we made changes in the program accordingly.
Very good, very good. Thanks. I want to encourage everybody to send in their questions or raise their hand if they'd like to speak their questions. We've got a couple comments and questions that have come in. I think I'll just read one from Edith. Could we have a specific example of how a mentoring session between, for example, Dr. Jenga and her mentor would look? Would you cover to-do items since the last meeting, or what is your challenge today? Some idea of how that actually would transpire.
Great question. Mary, would you like to answer that, just from your own experience?
Sorry, come again. I missed the question.
Marco, Mary, the question was, describe a little bit how the actual mentoring session takes place. What does it look like? What kind of questions might you ask or discuss with your mentor? Like what are your challenges today, or what have you done about achieving your goal? Are those the kinds of questions that would come up?
Okay, in the mentorship sessions, what normally happens, like in our case, is that we keep it very focused on the objectives. And so we schedule meetings either through Skype or through email or through telephone. And the most channel that has been working well for us is Skype. And anytime Yvonne travels to Kenya, she takes that opportunity to meet, and then we can discuss. And what we do is that our meetings are normally pre-scheduled, and then we set an agenda. For example, today we are going to talk about my technical skills in this aspect, and that starts off the meeting. And then after that, we discuss what has been my progress since the last time we talked, what has been the challenges that I've been facing, what has been working well, what do I think that we need to change in our strategies, what do we need to revise so that we can be able to make it a better and interactive session. So
very good.
yeah.
Thank you very much, Mary. That gives us a good description of what it feels like, and it struck me that you have an agenda. You think before you go into the session of what you really want to discuss that day. I think that's a key issue. We have another question from. Go ahead, Marco.
Yeah, just to echo how you summarize it. The key point is to be intentional. About the whole mentoring approach and the individual sessions, be extremely intentional about why are we here and what is it that you need to get out of it.
Thanks, Marco. We have another question here from Eric Crawford, and he asked, would you recommend that long-term training programs, either MS or PhD programs, should arrange for mentors as well as academic advisors and research supervisors? And then I would add to that, is there a role for some kind of linkage between the mentor and the supervisor? And Marco, please feel free to answer that, or other participants who want to respond to that, please also let us know, raise your hand, and we can call on you.
I'm comfortable answering or saying something about the second one. Although it's a tricky one, I'll leave the first question perhaps to somebody more qualified to answer that. The link between the supervisor and the mentor. On paper it looks like there seems to be a natural match, and you want to have a three-way conversation. And in certain circumstances, I could see that work. But there's lots of circumstances where it would get in the way. Get in the way of talking freely and focusing on a particular individual's goal. It's kind of similar to professional coaching in organizations as well, I think. From our experience, and this may, maybe this is specific for where we work, but I strongly doubt that. We see, let me rephrase that, not all supervisors are as enthusiastic about the growth and development and opportunities that one of their staff may get. And it can be a very real issue at times. And that would get in the way of the supervisor-mentor conversation.
Right.
I also think confidentiality, as it is with coaching, is paramount. Right. So fellows and mentors need to have this trust, and the mentee needs to feel open that the mentor is not going to share, certain sensitive issues with the supervisor.
Mm-hmm. We have so many good questions coming in. I'm going to go now to one sent in by Rachel Fellebaum. She asked, can you describe how you recruited mentors and committed mentors, and what kinds of incentives does award provide the mentors, other than covering travel?
Yeah. Well, the first step is that on our fellowship application form, we ask applicants to name 2 mentors or 2 potential mentors that they would consider. So that helps us to build up a database of potential mentors. We follow up with them and see if they're interested and learn more about them and their background and their motivations. And then it's a matter of matching individual fellows with the mentors, and ideally that's one of those 2 that they had identified. But sometimes we may suggest another person that we think may be better suited. In terms of, and of course there's our own network. We work with lots and lots of people, and it helps us to grow our database, and we ask for recommendations from very trusted and senior people, etc. We don't pay mentors. That would be the wrong signal, I think. We want people who truly buy in to the spirit of mentoring and who really want to make a difference. in the careers of these women researchers. We do give an incentive in the form that they can attend one of our training courses, a leadership course or a science course, or attend a conference, an international conference that we would pay for up to $2,500. So that's the kind of incentive that we give, but we are in such a wonderful, fortunate position that we really have a surplus of very talented senior people who are volunteering to be an award mentor, and we just don't have enough fellows.
Very good. Thanks, Marco. We had an interesting question from Madeline Williams. I'll just read it. How important is it for a mentor to understand a mentee's specific institution to move from individual impacts to institutional impacts? I think, and she just adds, and do institutional impacts need to be a key objective of the mentee? What do you think, Marco?
That's a fantastic question, and I think there are really two questions, and I want to start with the second part, and that's whether the objectives of the individual need to be tied in with the organizational goals and frameworks, etc. Now, awards like other representatives on the call, I suppose, we work primarily with individuals who come from many different institutions, and our focus is on the development of that individual. And we have assumptions around how that will filter up, or if you'd like, into the institutional changes, but our primary focus is that. However, this year, through additional funding from USAID particularly, we've been able to start mentoring programs or mentoring workshops for specific institutions. And so the approach is a little bit different there. So far we've done SOCO-INA, we have done IRI in the Philippines, and World Agroforestry Center in Kenya. And so all the participants there are from that particular institution. And so our approach is slightly different, because now we work with a mentoring coordinator in that institution and facilitate a discussion around the organizational objectives first. What are the goals, what are the plans, what are the KPIs, etc., and how can we link that to mentoring? And so there's more of an opportunity to facilitate focusing the mentor objectives with the organizational objectives. So that's a new direction that we're going, which is very exciting. I don't have any M&E results to show yet of that, but it's a fundamental difference, and it's important to highlight that. What was the first part of the question again? Oh yeah, if the mentor needs to understand the institution. I guess the answer is, as usual, is it depends. I mean, one could also ask, does the mentor need to be an expert in this particular person's field? And the answer is, typically it's fantastic, but it's not always necessary. A lot of times what's needed is a holistic approach, and not just one particular specialist approach for the kind of career goals that we're encouraging our fellows to set. So somebody who has become very senior and experienced in another field has probably faced similar challenges and obstacles and found similar opportunities to grow his or her career, and that can still be very useful as a guide for a mentee. But it all depends. If there are particular institutional obstacles or issues, then it may help to have an expert in that.
Thanks, Marco. Dave Hansen, you had your hand up for a while, and I see you just said Marco answered your question. And you've sent one in, so now I will read your question. And I was interested to hear that Award is now working with SOCO-INA, where I know IAGRI is working with SOCO-INA as well. So here's the question that Dave Hansen has sent in. In order to address cultural and organizational barriers encountered by young women scientists and teachers at their home institution, would it be advisable to develop mentoring programs at specific institutions to maximize institutional change impacts? I think actually, that is the question you just answered. So let me throw out another one. You can choose how to respond, Marco. Mo Fatungugi has sent in this question. Beyond the one-to-one sessions, how is the word using social media to reach out to additional people, either as small, close-knit forums or in mass settings, for example, discussion forums on LinkedIn, Facebook, etc.? And I think in answering this question, if you can do that in thinking about the increasing the impact on institutions, that would be helpful.
That's a terrific question, a very important one, and maybe in a way one of our Achilles heels in a word. It's something we haven't used as we would have liked to or should have, and it's something that we are working on and definitely want and need to change in the next 4 or 5 months. It's extremely important, I think, and to engage more people and to give them that platform is it's extremely useful. We simply have been under-resourced to do that.
We have an interesting question from Thomas Wobil in Liberia. In what ways have the mentees developed formal and informal ways of mentoring others without the influence of award and within the contexts where they operate?
Let me see if I understand the question correctly. I mean, we know of quite a number of mentors and fellows, the mentees, who have gone onwards beyond their award fellowship, so when the 2-year fellowship has ended, to continue to mentor, inspire, even set up mentoring programs in the institutions. I'm not sure if that answers the question. I'm not sure if I understood that correctly.
Well, actually, I think it does. I think that's what Thomas means, is that after award is finished or after your involvement within the 2-year fellowship is ended, what are the ways that they actually continue the mentorship formally or informally?
Okay, good.
I think that's the question.
And a key component, again, of it is to provide clarity around what formal mentoring looks like and provide people with the tools to continue with that. So the workbooks and the coordinator guidelines that we posted on the Acrolinks site, it's not as easy, and so many people have different interpretations of what mentoring looks like, and it's really important to be very clear about that and to see the benefits of a formal mentoring program with action plans. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mary. You were going to say something?
Yes, I'm trying to look at the sign of the heart so that I could raise my hand, but I can't see it from my side. Yeah, so I'd like to comment on that, how mentorship extends beyond the 2 pairs and beyond the 2 contractual years. In my case, what has happened is that during a mentorship with Yvonne Pinto, we decided that we are going to continue after the expiry of the contract for the 1 year, and because we already had the chemistry was working, and so we already had become friends, and we were able to start actually co-publishing together. And so after that, we have kept in touch up to today, since 2009, and we are still in touch. We communicate almost on daily basis on email. And during the mentorship and the trainings that we go through, the mentorship orientation, and once the mentee and the mentor internalizes that this is a necessary activity to continue with, then you find that it becomes naturalized in you. And anytime, for example, like I have more than 5 young girls who are taking their first degree or who are doing their second degree, and I'm mentoring them informally, actually. And anytime they need my attention so that we can be able to talk, Yeah, they are able to send an email or something, and then we are able to schedule a meeting. And what I want to say is that because of the training that the two people go through, the mentor and the mentee, they internalize this and they see it, they see the importance and the changes that it's bringing in their lives. For me and Yvonne, we would say that our lives have really been transformed. And actually, I have seen Yvonne now mentoring younger people. And she has connected me with these people so that we are becoming like now a big group.
Oh, that's excellent. A mentoring team.
Yeah, talking to each other. And so it really spills out. The impact is beyond the two pairs.
Yeah.
And now what I want to comment on the influence on institutions. Institutions really are made up of people, they are made up of policies, infrastructure, and all that. But their performance so much so depends on the people. So if the skills of the people is built and improved, then it is easy to influence the policies, decision making within institutions and bring the change that they desire. But for us, for example, like the young scientists, it's not easy to be able to influence decision making in an institution. Mm-hmm. You can only be able to do that if you are confident, if you are assertive, if you have good negotiation skills, you know, if you believe in yourself, then you are able to move the agenda. So it starts from the skills of one person and then this is transferred to the institution.
Yes. Thank you, Mary. We're running out of time on this topic. However, I want to wrap up with two final questions, one from Clara Cohen about mentoring and one on action planning, which we actually have not discussed too much from Eric Crawford. Let me read both questions and then open it up and then we'll move on. So Clara wrote, Marco presented a good argument for separating mentor and supervisor functions. However, for those programs lacking the resources to support a separate mentorship component, can participants share examples of next best approaches for helping academic advisors for degree programs to gain awareness and skills to better support professional growth of students? And the question on action planning is, does action planning include anything other than preparation of the purpose roadmap that you discussed for award fellows? So let's focus on those two questions, and then I think we need to move on to agenda item number 4, and we'll probably circle back to some of these issues in that discussion anyway. Marco or Mary, please go ahead.
All right, I'll start with the second one, I think. The action planning. Well, I hope the message from some of the talking was that it's so important to be absolutely intentional of where you want to go. And the purpose roadmap is one tool in that. The mentors and the mentees, they use plans, mentoring plans for that as well. Throughout the award fellowship, we use progress journals and other M&E tools to keep our stakeholders focused, intentional, and continually reflective. And I guess that's how we don't use the word action planning per se in award, but given the question, those are the tools and the approaches that we use to keep that momentum going. I'm not sure if that's a great answer.
In previous discussions,
yeah.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. In previous discussions with you and other and Vicky of Award, what I understood was one purpose of the roadmap was a set of benchmarks that the fellow then constantly returns to assess their own progress and maybe make course correction of sort of where they're headed for the next little while. And I thought that was really valuable. It's not just it ties the capacity building into the M&E as one package.
Correct.
And
yeah.
I find that a very useful strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, and goals. And goals are not set in stone per se. They serve a purpose of moving forward and having plans and discussions around that. And as you move up the career ladder, or the fellows move up the career ladder, they go higher up in their purpose roadmap. Their viewpoint, their vantage point may have changed, and they can adjust and adapt. But it's that mindset that is constantly there. Yes, you're right.
Do you want to tackle that other question about the advisors in the degree program and their the next best approaches for helping advisors use some of these mentoring strategies without a separate mentoring program?
Sure. Yeah. No. Well, I see a lot of parallels with, say, professional coaching, which is what I'm more in than mentoring, actually. A good supervisor will still use coaching or mentoring skills, and can be his or her effectiveness in supporting a particular person can really be increased by applying some of these skills. And for example, I give a coaching clinic, which helps managers, for example, to learn some of the coaching skills, but it's not to turn them into a professional coach. They're wearing still the manager's hat or the supervisor's hat, but their performance can really be enhanced by using those skills. I could see the same with when you have a supervisor for a degree program, to become really versatile in some of these mentoring skills and interpersonal skills. That the support of these people, the ability to support them, will be greatly enhanced. It just needs to be clear that a person is still predominantly wearing a supervisor's hat, and is not going to be a formal mentor per se. But clearly there will be a lot of benefits there. Yeah.
Thank you, Marco. Let's turn. We have a few minutes left, about 20, and to open up some other ways to leverage impact, and everybody could be part of this. A few things come to mind. I'll just throw out one, and then people can come in, raise their hand if they wish to suggest other ways of leveraging impact, so that the individual training that we're refining and that we do quite well has more of an impact on the institutions where the trainees actually will end up. So one of the things are ways to facilitate the trainees' engagement with his or her home institution. This is an area that I think there's opportunities for creative solutions there. For example, when a trainee is in a 2-year program, graduate degree, are they keeping in touch on a regular basis with their home institution? It used to be years ago in these projects, people would always say they didn't have the money to call because it was very expensive. Pretty much those constraints no longer exist. How can we incorporate activities or even requirements for trainees to maintain regular contact with a variety of people influential in their home institution during their training program? This was something that has come up a couple times, and I would just like to throw that out as a solution that we can consider implementing. Maybe people are already doing that, so it would be good to hear from them on how they do it. I can imagine this being something, a monthly report, monthly email sent by the student to the program manager of here's what I did this week. It's not that, actually, it's very close to the mentoring that you've been describing, but it wouldn't be a formal system set up. Maybe it could evolve into a formal mentoring relationship with somebody back at the institution. So that's one idea in how to facilitate a trainee's engagement with the home institution. Then the second one is, how do you strengthen ties between the institution actually organizing the training for the individual and the individual's institution back home? This was something that came up in the report that was written in 2010 on long-term training in agriculture, where the group found that institutions that had no ties to the country from where the trainees came tended not to have any relationship with the institutions in the country, which makes sense, and that those training programs did not have as much commitment to producing graduates in areas critical development in that country. So how can those ties be strengthened between an institution training an individual and the institution from where that trainee came? There are some ways we can kick around to increase those connections, and they would have to be at a higher level. When a trainee has a relationship with someone back at the home institution, it's basically between the student and a faculty member or a colleague perhaps. But what about between the institution actually organizing the training and at the higher level and the higher levels, faculty heads or administrators from the home institution? So I think there are ways we can improve that. And these are just two areas that we picked out that seem to be ripe for creative insights and ideas from people. And then Anne and Claire had a third one that we talked about. Anne, do you want to just describe that briefly? And then we'll open it up for questions. Don't forget to raise your hand or send in your questions. Anne Claire?
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, the third strategy we discussed was building leadership development into long-term technical training. And I think Mary made such a compelling case in her points earlier about the importance of leadership skills, which can be learned, and it's a mindset as well. It's a set of skills and a mindset. And I think that it's very clear that even in a program that's focused on technical training, we are trying to change institutions, and changing institutions requires influence and leadership skills, etc., and management skills. So, and I would add to that, based on some of what Mary was saying, is networking skills, which you might consider as part of leadership skills. And the last thing I'll say on it is that my understanding is almost all programs that we have talked to in the last several months on this project are doing leadership skills and recognize the importance of doing leadership skills capacity building. However, I think that there's room for those programs to be expanded from relatively small-scale workshop-type approaches to an iterative process over the course of the training. In other words, a long-term leadership skills development program integrated into technical training. And that can be hard to do when trainees in a program are scattered at lots of institutions. That presents certain challenges, but that doesn't mean that it can't be done. There are many ways now to bring groups together virtually for this kind of thing. And if it's done on a repeated basis over time, I think it gives trainees the chance to utilize those skills and practice them over the course of the training. So we'll stop there with these were some ideas we had, but we anticipate hearing lots of other ideas or comments and questions on these three. And so we'll open it up now.
Marco, do you have any comments on any of the things that we've been discussing?
Sorry, yeah, I just wanted to leave. I've taken up a lot of floor space, but just wanted to echo what was just said. I mean, in today's organizations, and whether you're a scientist or a development professional or otherwise, just hard skills is not going to do it. And I think what was just said, I mean, emphasizing that soft skills are extremely important to influence institutions and research and development. So I fully echo that, and which is why we invest in both in awards. And the last thing I want to say is I have to excuse myself. I have another online webinar session starting in 15 minutes, and I need to get ready for that. So just wanted to say thank you all for inviting me and for listening. And I'm sure people can find me on the group, my email address if there's any more questions. And I really want to thank Mary as well for staying on and sharing her personal experience. So thank you.
Thank you both very much on behalf of our project here. We really appreciate your input and the time you took to organize this, and very, very excellent presentations. Thank you very. We will now release you. We have a hand up too for a question. So I think it's from Dave Hansen. Okay, very good. Dave, I think you're on. Not quite yet. Hold on. You'll be on in a minute.
Well, I don't know. Can you hear me?
Now you are. Now we can hear you fine. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Well, you know, Anne-Claire mentioned that we are leading a consortium that's working in a 5-year program with Sokoine University of Agriculture, and I just wanted to say that, you know, we think that this leadership development is very important as well. Now, what we're contemplating is setting up a webinar series on leadership over the coming semester. This would include maybe 8 or 10 webinars and inviting all of the individuals undertaking graduate degree training under our program to participate in it. We feel that the technical aspects of whatever is presented in these webinars will be important, but more importantly, we hope that this might develop a cadre of individuals who identify with one another, are sensitized to the importance of looking at leadership and change management, and over the long haul then, upon their return, having a collective impact on their institution. I'd be interested in knowing if you're aware of any other similar experiences or any other ways of developing this idea of a collective sense of identity over the importance of leadership development at a particular institution.
Thanks, David. That's an interesting question, and it links a bit to different ways of influencing trainees, either in mentoring that Clara had asked about, you know, the best alternative when we don't have the entire structure of a program, of a mentoring program as a ward is developed. So, and this is in a way the webinar idea to instill leadership ideas with trainees is an interesting one. Are there people out there that are familiar with this or have actually done a similar creative approach to linking in with the students that are undergoing training? If there are, raise your hand and we will put you on. If there aren't, or if it takes you a moment to find how to raise your hand, we can move on to another issue, another topic. Remember, we're considering other ways of leveraging impact from individual training to institutional training. That's what we're trying to pick up. There are actually quite a few, you know, alternative ways. We mentioned just one or two. But if you have other ways, Dave has talked about integrating leadership training inside or into the programs by using webinars. Another thing that we discovered was, you know, institutions could do a mapping inside each institution to find out where their overseas institution, let's say in the United States, where their overseas touch points are, where are they impacting or having any relationship with an institution, and putting those departments or those ongoing relationships, overlaying them to the trainees from those institutions. And in many institutions, MSU, Kansas State, Purdue, they're very large, so it would be very difficult to know what are those links going on even within the department, but less so even beyond the department. So we felt that would be a way for people to increase the linkages and the influence going on. Just a simple mapping. It might not be quite that simple, but at least a mapping where you're identifying the different touch points. Anne-Claire?
Well, I was curious to loop back to Dave, your question. And my understanding of the iAgri project is it's quite different from many training programs where there really just is the training, since you have this 5-year engagement with a single institution. And so the question you were asking about the leadership training, from what I understand of the project, would be not just of the trainees the 100 or so trainees that you're doing, but also of the leadership at the institution? And are you trying to somehow bring those two together in some kind of leadership development program? And you're still unmuted, Dave, so you can answer
I'm okay?
the question. Yes.
All right. Well, that's a good question, because we have decided that organizational change management is at the very core of the future success of Sokoine University of Agriculture. So we have been focusing on that, and indeed we have contracted with some people to give us some help in that area. But I'm not so sure that we've built a bridge here between our idea of working with the individual young men and women who are currently undergoing graduate degree training and our coaching and working with the leadership of Sokoine University of Agriculture. I'd be interested in hearing from others about how indeed that might occur. I really haven't thought much about it, but potentially it sounds like a very important bridge to make.
Right. Sounds like a great opportunity to build in the leadership capacity development in the training overseas. But Andy's got a response here for you.
Well, I was just thinking, Dave, when you said that, I think if I remember your program there, you have like 125 Tanzanians undergoing graduate study, or a large number, a large group. I was imagining what it would be like to be the head of the institution in Africa when all these 125 students return. In organizational development, that's a threatening situation because they're coming back with different skills, interacting with faculty that did not go or have the chance that these younger students have. And I'm glad that you've just seen the need for an organizational change management support, because without that, I think it's going to be very dicey to integrate all these students. And we've had lots of examples in USAID participant training history where the students go back and many of them don't even find their job there. People have moved on. That's why this idea of keeping a link between the trainee is so critical, and a regular link, not once a summer or once a year, but monthly at a minimum, where these trainees are in contact through all kinds of different ways, social media, video conferencing, with people back home. So the how can I say it, the terrain is fertile for their return, and that their expertise, which is, as we've learned, much of the expertise will be in soft skills, critical thinking, resource mobilization, that these students come back with. And how can they integrate those changes in an institution unless that institution is really prepared? I think that's the key. And you've identified exactly the problem. We're not here necessarily to offer all these solutions. We're listening and receiving a lot of good information from people. But I think you've raised some really critical questions.
I think we're nearing the end of our time, so I think we'll bring this to a close. We will have one final webinar on October 24, that's 3 weeks from now, and we will be announcing the details in the next week. Based on the feedback we've received, it sounds as though there's a lot of interest in discussing what do you do post-training. And again, in the same framework of what do you do post-training to increase the impact of training on institutional strengthening. So that is probably going to be the focus of our last and final webinar, but we are interested in other ideas, things we could add to that. And I want to thank, I know Marco and Mary are no longer here, but we want to thank them again for their contributions. I learned a lot about mentoring myself from talking with Marco and Mary. And thanks to all of you for joining. This has been a very interesting series so far. We look forward to the next one. And with that, I will close the session. Thanks very much.